Om Shri Sai Ram. On behalf of every member of the Shri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini team, I offer our collective pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. My name is Karuna Munshi and I am the lead volunteer at Shri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini, and today I am here with a number of my sisters and brothers who represent a body of 1,000 strong volunteers comprising this beautiful project called Shri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini. We are very grateful to the Shri Sathya Sai Media Center for this invitation, which gives us an opportunity to celebrate and relive the joy that we experienced recently. And we are here to share it with you. July 5th to July 7th, 2024 witnessed a historic event in Prasanthi Nilayam. It was hosted by our parent body, the Shri Sathya Sai Central Trust. The event was the Shri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini National Education Summit 2024, and our theme was Integral to Inclusion. The journey began about a year prior, and we were actively involved in planning the entire process for about 110 days prior to the actual event taking place. But in the process, we really realized at every step something that we repeatedly say. At Vidya Vahini, everyone says that we work under our divine director, his divine worship and supreme teacher to humanity, our beloved Bhagwan Shri Sathya Sai Baba. We refer to Bhagwan as our divine director and to Prasanthi Nilayam as our head office. I think Swami really wanted us to experience that reality at a deep level, which is what happened. So from the planning, the execution, the strategy, the nitty-gritties of this event, which saw a very beautiful representation from 4 major parties or groups. Of course, the participants who are the volunteers of this project, the public sector, the philanthropy, which is the central trust, and the private sector. So we had people from government, we had people from the big 5 accounting firms of the world who are engaged with us at some level or the other. We had premier institutions and their representatives who are collaborating with us. We had our participants and many other people who came here as special guests, and for many of them this was their first ever exposure to Prasanthi Nilayam. And what drew them here was Bhagwan's compassion that flows to all humanity in the form of Shri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini program. So today I will start with my colleague Dr. Srividya Sridhar, who is a member of our project management team for one of our projects called the Inclusive Education Project. Sai Ram Srividya.
Sai Ram.
Let's start by recalling the process that went into planning this humongous, momentous conference or summit at a national level, which actually made history for not only those who attended but also for ourselves. Can you tell us how the conference planning began and what was involved?
Thank you, Karna ma'am. As you all know, Shri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini program that was launched by Bhagwan on his 85th birthday, the foundation, or rather the framework and approach of the program is in integral education for all by all. We all know that Swami's system of education, when we say integral holistic education, it takes care of intellectual education, emotional, social, physical, and more importantly, even spiritual education. So Swami's system of education is a wholesome package and it is integral in all aspects. The new education policy and the national curriculum framework that is developed based on the new education policy after so many years is talking about this kind of approach today. Vidya Vahini has already delivered or has already packaged content, teaching aids and training from an integral approach. Now the new education policy talks about making the integral platform inclusive. That is, there has to be an evolution from having an integral ecosystem to making it an inclusive ecosystem. Bhagwan is a visionary and has already established this approach of education system in his educational institutions. So now Vidya Vahini had to talk about, or the theme for this year's conference was integral to inclusion. That is, having a foundation of integral approach and enhancing it and evolving it to become inclusive education. We had to have that as the theme and the approach, and we also had to look at the various people whom we collaborate with, who support the project, the volunteer strength we have, the experts who work with us, the educationists that support this project, all of them coming together as participants and making it visible that Vidya Vahini is a program that evolves with the evolution of education. So we had to bring in that complexity in a very simple framework that would make everybody understand that Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini looks at integral inclusion. It enables learning of diversity not only in the classroom but beyond the classroom as per its framework of taking care of education across all the domains of learning. And we also had to include every aspect of deliverables or every kind of methodology and approach that we have. So this was the complexity that we had to plan things around and fit it into delivering it over 2.5 days. I would not say that this is a challenge. It was more of ensuring that everybody who participated in it as a presenter and everybody who participated in this conference as a beneficiary or as a participant go home with the learning that Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini is a program that evolves with the evolution in education. It is a program that looks at enabling the teacher, enabling the parent, enabling the caregiver, rather every stakeholder that is involved in education to provide the best for learning. And the learning of the learners is looked at from diversity perspective, because every learner is diverse irrespective of whether you're looking at an inclusive ecosystem or not. So to consider all this within the theme is what we had done, and that is how the agenda evolved.
Thank you. That was a very good, clear rundown. Now, that clarity came after a lot of brainstorming between the core team members. The clarity that Dr. Srividya spoke of, eventually, she was able to capture something that took us a lot of discussions over Zoom calls to arrive at. And I'm going to refer to my colleague, Brother Shri V.L. Subramanian, because you lead our strategy and planning. What was it that we were looking to focus upon during these 2.5-3 days of conference?
Srividya sister mentioned about the thought, the idea behind that. Now, our challenge was that within a slightly larger group, how do we first understand? Then, over the 2.5 days, how do we package it so that every single participant gets a complete picture of what Vidya Vahini is doing, especially on integral education domain. So that was what we need to plan. Bhagavan says start early. So we started the process of planning for this event much ahead. We started sometime in December last year, early January. We didn't have an agenda item. All we had this thought that we want to do this. There were multiple calls, Zoom calls, wherein we could get clarity for ourselves. We said, okay, this is the theme which we are going, and this theme has to cover the following items so that we can get to the outcome what we are planning. So that was the next stage. So with this, we were able to come up with a skeletal agenda. Once the agenda was done, then the next step was to identify people who could deliver those sessions, speakers who could present on those topics. So that was our next team. We had to form a small core team so that the work can be distributed. That process started. We set up a governance mechanism. We had weekly governance calls. Initially, it was fortnightly, then we moved on to weekly governance calls. Every single item that was discussed was tracked for conclusion. We had ownership assigned to every single piece. When we understood we are going to host the event at Sai Hira Global Convention Center, then we also need to look at what is possible, what is not possible there, what we are allowed to do, what we cannot do, then how do we work around this. All of this had to be planned. This is what we did, sister, and we started from sometime in January, and we could deliver it by on July 5, 6, 7. Yeah.
And although he spoke of governance calls fortnightly, weekly, I have a different perspective on it. Actually, those governance calls after a while became daily.
Yes.
And they became hourly, because whenever people come to our office at Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini, I often get asked, where is everyone? Well, very hard to explain. We're something like Amazon. Our goods are kept all over the world. Or we are like Ola and Uber. So our cars are plying everywhere on the road. So this is the office where just a handful of us work, and our Bhagwan's very precious resources, his human resources, his human capital is spread all over the world. And just to make sure that we could, the core team itself had different time zones. So we had to relentlessly sacrifice other people's sleep to coincide with our timing and have calls to discuss various nitty-gritties. So we started with one WhatsApp group, and then it just grew into multiple, and there was a core WhatsApp group where a lot of core planning happened. So I will now turn to my colleague, Brother P. Hariharan, who heads two verticals at Vidya Vahini, namely partnerships, public and private, and also IT coordination. But at this conference, he had a very important role to play. He was our conference coordinator, working directly under the command of our Divine Director, Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Sairam Hari, brother.
Sairam.
So who were the target audience that we were trying to cater to, and what were some of the goals we wanted to achieve at this conference?
One of the key elements that we wanted to do here during this conference is to ensure that the message that Bhagwan had laid out and the goals that he had set out for Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini is understood well by all. And when I say all, the audience being our own Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini volunteers, eminent educationists across the world, and also experts in the inclusive education space, who were all coming together for this conference and sharing their thoughts, sharing their ideas, and helping the program to expand. So this meant that we had to bring in a lot of national level bodies and institutions which are already working in this space and with whom we have already been collaborating to some extent in the last 3 to 4 years. One of the national level bodies was the Government of India through NCRT and through its Central Institute of Education Technology, where they wanted to work with Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini to ensure that all the content that we have been creating for the school teachers is now available at the national platform Diksha for usage by all the teachers across the country. So that was the first collaboration or first partnership that we could work at that level, thanks to Bhagwan's guidance and his grace. And then slowly, as events unfolded, we were able to get in touch with multiple other organizations, some of them who came to us directly, indirectly. They also wanted to work with us, seeing the content that we have been developing and the schools with which we have been working with. And they said, let's work together and see if we can collaborate. So that's how we actually had many institutions like, for example, the All India Institute of Speech and Hearing in Mysuru, with whom we had an MOU that was actually signed during the conference. We had also an MOU that was signed with IIT Madras, and this was for creating content for teacher training through their Swayam Plus platform. Along with NCRT, we also been working with Niti Aayog for bringing content and taking it to the schools in the two of the aspirational districts in this country. We also, as I mentioned, several other organizations which said that they would want to collaborate with Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini because of the work that we do, and they came forward and said, can we have a formal understanding, can we have a formal document that can help them to work with us over a longer period of time. So that's why we thought the conference is the best place where all of us can come together and initiate some of these formal arrangements. Also, we worked with organizations such as the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, who came forward and said, along with the content that Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini is providing, they would also supplement that with content and training on financial literacy. So they are now working with us already in 2 schools, and we already have a letter of association signed up with them. Similarly, we had other organizations such as the Indore Deaf Bilingual Academy and Muskan Foundation, who also attended the conference and were a part of the entire program. They also signed MOUs with us. So what has actually happened is that this conference became a center point for all our partners to come together and be with us, understand each other's perspectives, and work out the way forward.
Thank you, Hari brother. And as interesting as it may sound that the collaboration with the Indian Institute of Technology Madras, or AISH, the All India Institute of Speech and Hearing, IDBA Indore, and ACCA, and many others, the NCERT, CIET. What's interesting is that this conference became the flashpoint, as he said, the center point that was attracting so many eminent collaborators, past, present, and emerging. And I just want to say this with much humility. The way Vidya Vahini with Bhagwan's grace is growing, there is one consistent feedback that everything that comes from Prasanthi Nilayam is silent, solid work. And we just realized the power of Bhagwan's lifetime of sacrifice in every area, especially education. For example, the architects of the National Education Policy, every time they mention, you have the entire ecosystem there. NEP, the NCF, the National Curriculum Framework, the National Education Policy, these are beautiful documents, well written, well thought out. But to translate them into reality, if anybody can do it, Sai Baba can. And for us, that's a humongous responsibility, because we are sitting in Sai Baba Central in Prasanthi Nilayam, and to represent Supreme Godhead, and to represent the Supreme Teacher to humanity, and to represent the one singular dynamic force who has so silently reformed the system of education in this country for more than 50 years. It's not a joke. And today we can see that seeding of human consciousness that Bhagwan initiated is coming together with all these premier institutions wanting to collaborate with his Vidya Vahini. For us, it's really a big privilege, but a bigger responsibility. And throughout this conference and his planning, Bhagwan kept reminding us that he is the doer. We just have to make ourselves available. Honestly, individually or collectively, we didn't have the IQ level or the bandwidth to think of something so grand as it eventually emerged. But it all came from Swami dropping one thought in our heads at a time, because he knew we can only handle so much of divine wisdom at a time. The entire process unfolded before us. So I'm going to ask Sri Vidya to dwell upon the other details when we were planning this. How did we think of the teams? Because we started on a blank tablet. We hadn't done anything quite like this before. We've been so micro-focused on our individual areas of work: content creation, training aids, CSR partnerships, IT development. Everybody knows their bit and a little bit more. So even for our larger membership, this was an eye-opener. Even for all the external members, special guests who came to Prasanthi Nilayam for the first time, who had no idea that such good IT digital tech work can happen in the field of education, emanating from an ashram in a very beautiful place named Prasanthi Nilayam. There were multiple targets that Bhagwan was achieving with one little arrow. That was the NES, the National Education Summit 2024. So Srividya, what were some of the other considerations that went into the planning when we initially started the process?
When we initially started the process, we were looking at it from 4 dimensions, or rather 4 pillars that would ensure that this conference becomes comprehensive and it totally syncs with what Vidya Vahini is delivering, because we always walk the talk. That was a visibility that we wanted to create, not only to the participants but also to those who were coming here for the first time, and to all our partners. It was very important for us to showcase the fact that we are looking at education not just from a holistic approach, but we are looking at education from an equitable learning environment approach.
And I believe there were 4 filters that we wanted to make sure that whatever we do, there was one focus that came up in every conversation, which was the way we do things is as important as what we do. So the medium has to become the message. And we were very particular that what we do in this conference reflects inclusion, it reflects sustainability, it reflects access, and it celebrates diversity. Because at the end of the day, the world is very pluralistic to the naked eye, but the underlying reality is one, and that's what Bhagwan has taught us all his life. So that whole thing, that the world is one family, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, we wanted that to reflect in all the choices we made. What were some of the considerations that were taken into place for this?
Yeah, if you look at sustainability, we were not just looking at sustainability in terms of not using plastic. Of course, that was followed to the dot.
Yes.
We looked at sustainability in terms of we have taken a journey. Vidya Vahini itself has been a journey. Starting from just delivering few classroom related lesson plans to where we are today has been a big journey. It has been an immense journey. And today, if we stand back and see the kind of deliverables that have reached the education environment today, it's humongous. Sometimes we ourselves think, has Bhagwan enabled so much? Has Bhagwan blessed us? And has Bhagwan made us instruments to deliver so much? It becomes like a big prayer answered. And definitely it is Bhagwan's vision. It is Bhagwan's vision falling into practice or becoming a reality. So if you look at sustainability from that perspective, then yes, where we have reached today, we should go further from here. So that sustenance at every point is very important. That is why when we deliver something, we not only look at the implementation of it, we also are very, very conscious and do make a lot of efforts to ensure there is sustainability. So whatever is delivered in Vidya Vahini, not only this event called the conference, everything that we do in Vidya Vahini, there is a sustainability element to it. Now if you talk about inclusion, the conference itself has brought in so many facets of inclusion. We had Indian Sign Language. We had people interpreting and ensuring that people with who need the sign language interpretation are very well taken care of. And tomorrow when we broadcast this or when we reach this out as virtual material to everybody, it has the ISL element in it. So we had 2 Indian Sign Language ISL interpreters throughout the conference, interpreting even the announcements, not just the presentations. Thanks to Srimati Sushila Joseph and Srimati Priyanka Prashant, and also thanks to Lakshmi Ravishankar for organizing this. They were there throughout, and that is one of the star inclusive approaches that we had in the conference.
Absolutely.
We also made sure that everybody who needs accessibility were provided. We had special volunteers who would take care, like Vijay Sri Krishnan, Lakshmi Ravishankar, Anjali Saxena, Anita Kotian, who took care of making sure that people who needed that kind of assistance were provided that kind of assistance. It is done in the ashram always. It is not new to the Sathya Sai system or the Prasanthi Nilayam ashram. But even in the conference, this was given a lot of importance and it was taken care. And if we are talking about addressing diversity, today the new education policy is talking about inclusion. But if you go back to Swami's system of education, or the basic foundation or the basic motto on which the Sathya Sai Vidyavahini inclusive education program itself works, which says intuitive vision, inclusive thinking, expansive feeling. These are all from Swami's quotation. So if we have to go from this kind of approach, that kind of inclusion was shown in practice in the conference and much beyond the conference. Even when we create our material, we look at it from a universal design for learning approach. And we keep integral approach as the foundation, and we have built on this integral approach. So whatever Swami had put together as Sathya Sai system of education is aligned or is synchronized with new education policy, national curriculum framework, all the policies and procedures that NCERT and other education bodies bring, and more importantly, the UNESCO's Sustainable Development Goals. So this is like looking at a prism from all vertices or all dimensions. And like addressing diversity is like the white light coming into the prism and spreading into various colored lights. So the teacher is one. The teacher has only one approach, but the provision that Vidyavahini gives, the kind of content, the kind of methodology, the kind of training, the kind of capacity building programs, all that what Vidyavahini gives to the teacher and enables the teacher with, allows her to address the diversity in the classroom. So what better definition of inclusion, sustainability, diversity, addressing diversity and ensuring there is access for everybody.
True.
Because access is not just about physical access. Access is not about just providing a ramp. And a wheelchair. It is much, much beyond that. It is through technology, it is through adaptive devices, everything. So Vidyavahini has considered this from a 360-degree angle as a wholesome package, just like how Swami's system of education is a whole person approach, not just the intellectual aspect of education. So Vidyavahini also looks at packaging its deliverables from that perspective, and that was very evident in this conference, not just from the presentation perspective, but from all the feedback we received, how the collaborators looked at it, how the partners looked at it, how even the family members of participants got an overview of it. From that perspective, the sustainability, the inclusion, the diversity aspect, and the access that was enabled were taken care of. I have to mention certain names here. If we are talking about the planning and strategy that went behind, all the functional leads of Vidyavahini came into the discussion, whether it was our content lead Suhasini Nagraj, and all the people who work with her in the core content team, and the planning and strategy lead who is here, the IT lead, the multimedia lead. The multimedia played such a huge part in this whole thing, and the project management team, Saurabh Saxena, Kotian sir, Ramkrishnan Vembu, and everybody participated and ensured that this becomes a comprehensive approach.
Thank you, Shrividya. And as you mentioned, the training leads, we had the training lead, Dr. Chandra Janaki Raman, everybody contributing wonderful ideas. And I just want to mention one thing. The conference reiterated the fact that the Central Trust is leading India's greatest reformation in education by providing tangible, although digital in nature, but actually usable resources to translate policy into practice. And what sounds like modern buzzwords, the whole narration around SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, pluralism, celebrating diversity, inclusion, this is embedded in our culture from the day 14-year-old young person sang a bhajan called Manasa Bhajare Guru Charanam. The ecosystem in Prasanthi Nilayam is sustainable. When I was a student, which was many decades ago when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, Bhagwan gave us a booklet called Sealing on Desires. And he spoke to us personally as students on why we should be very mindful of how we spend money, time, food, and energy. So we know a thing or two around here, but we don't market it as a product, as a brand new idea. It is embedded in the culture of Prasanthi and the Sri Sathya Sai organization. And today this has become policy. So who better than Bhagwan himself to lead this country and the world to translate it literally into practice? Now, to convey this, these are big thoughts, big ideas. How do you communicate this in bite-sized pieces and bring it into some kind of a shape and form, which is a great intellectual exchange? I'm going to ask Brother Subramanian, how did we determine some of the teams, their structures, what were the verticals that we thought of, and anything else that you can shed light on in terms of planning as briefly as possible?
Once we had some basic idea, some kind of an agenda, kind of an approach, once we had that, yes, then the task ahead became visible. How do somebody has to coordinate all the external speakers. How do we invite them? How do we ensure that they all attend, block their calendars, ensuring that, whatever topic they need to speak, that is communicated. That is one preparation, including getting their presentations in advance. That's one thing. That was a big task. Second thing is that the entire transportation, because people moving from Sai-Hira Global Convention Center to the accommodation, that was one challenge for us. Then moving people for lunch or any other break. Also, the dignitaries have to be received when they are flying into Bangalore International Airport. How do we bring them into Prasanthi Nilayam and we take them back, or some people arrived by train? This is one aspect, just managing the transportation of people. How do we ensure, Bhagavan has taught us how to Atiti Devo Bhava, how do we take care of our guests? How do we ensure that each and every participant who has arrived here, be it our own volunteer, be it a guest speaker, how do we ensure that their comforts are taken care of? That whatever their needs, that's all provided for. That was one thing. Like this, I can keep mentioning many other items.
They'll come up.
And they all would, as in the course of the conversation, it will come up. One of the sisters mentioned that normally when you do a planning exercise for this kind of a setup, you start from top down. Okay, here it so happened that ideas came from all sides. We didn't say that this is a smaller, minute detail, we will park it, we will ignore it. No, it didn't happen that way. Every single idea that was received well, put it in the respective bucket. So all of the, it became a puzzle right? We keep getting pieces and we could stack them correctly and we could deliver the conference.
Thank you. Haribhai, your final
Yeah.
thoughts on the, because you were our, I have a funny story to tell about this. So when we were doing our assigning roles, we wanted to assign responsibility based on everybody's skill set, so to the best of their abilities. And the three of us here and Dr. Radhika, we were in a team called Communications and Permissions. And Brother Hari was a late entrant to the planning because he was very busy on his professional duties in another part of the country. So we gave him some time to jump into the fray. And when he was ready, he was supposed to join the same team. And sometimes, you have the best slip of tongue ever. So when I was asked which bucket to put him in, I said, yeah, the same one in which all of us are there. And I forgot the name of that team. It was supposed to be Communications and Permissions. Instead, I said, Conference Coordination. I thought that was the name of the team. So a new category was created, Conference Coordination. I think that's the best slip of tongue I ever had, because when Brother Hari took over the role of Conference Coordination, he brought his decades of experience as a consultant in a very big multinational company, as a very meticulous spreadsheet maintaining chartered accountant that he is, and a very calm person, because all of us were getting a little hyper and excited, and sometimes getting ahead of ourselves. So Haribhai always brings a lot of calm and clarity into everything. How was that for you, brother?
Some of those things which sister you told about me are entirely thanks to Bhagwan's grace.
Of course.
He instilled these virtues right from the time when I saw Bhagwan as a child and when I studied here. So if it came naturally and it appeared naturally to all of you, it meant that Swami was playing the role through me.
True.
The other part is also looking at what do we mean by coordination, and it is also linked to the theme of the conference. When we say we are open to inclusivity, diversity, etc., what does it mean? It means that we take everybody's views and thoughts on board. There would be differences of opinion. There would be a lot of debates and discussions.
Yeah.
And it was important that during all of that planning exercise and even during the actual execution of those tasks during the conference, that we take everybody's views on board. Some of it could be put into practice, some of them probably could not be done, but everybody who joined that entire endeavor felt and should feel that they have all contributed, not just in terms of doing the task that they were supposed to do, but also in contributing to the entire planning and approach the entire summit. So that was the underlying thinking behind what I understand is the role of a coordinator. Because when you coordinate, you are not actually putting your ideas in front of everybody. You are actually assimilating the thoughts of everyone around, putting them into a proper framework such that everybody feels included, everybody feels
Heard.
and everybody then contributes more than 100% of what they can do for the entire conference.
Very well said, brother. I absolutely concur with that, because we found that every volunteer who took up any responsibility owned it, and I love to say 108%. Because they just did whatever was required. You can only plan up to 80% any event. There will be exigencies, 20% margin of error that is always exists in any event planning. And yet I found our people were so involved that they would, just like Swami, observe very quietly. Everybody was present in the moment, and they were looking for any potential need that would arise which had not been thought of before, and they would do the needful like this, like their life depended on it. I think that was really special. So I want to thank this particular panel for joining me, and invite the other teams to come on board and share their perspective, and perhaps my two brothers and sister here can join me at the end of the discussion again.
Thank you.
Sai.
Thank you.
Sai.
Sai Ram.